Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to another episode of EMEA. We're recording this on a Friday. It's been a very blustery day in the southeast of England. We've had a lot of rain, we've had a lot of wind, and it's turned decidedly chilly. So it's great to have you all listening to us. As ever, please like and share our content on LinkedIn. I'm really pleased to announce that we've now got over 1,200 followers. So thank you to everybody that's sharing our content. We really appreciate the support that you're giving us. Anyway, as ever, I'm Mark Robinson. Great to have you here again. And I'm going to introduce our next guest. I would like to introduce who's joining us today, all the way from Brazil, actually. So we've got some really interesting things to talk about, like anacondas in the Amazon and cannibalistic tribes, which is going to be really cool. I'd like to introduce Eduardo Queiroz.
Perfect.
Yes,
Thank
who
you.
is the EMEA Regional Facilities Manager at Kantar. Hello, Eduardo. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. It was a long trip all the way from Brazil here, but
I know,
finally
and
there.
just for us as well, Eduardo.
Can you believe it?
Thank you very much. That's so kind.
Thank you for
Have we
having me.
reached Brazil?
Yes.
We have?
Yes.
So we're worldwide now,
Well,
officially.
If you haven't, then probably I'll make sure of it.
You'll make sure.
Yes.
We're gonna go viral in Brazil.
Exactly.
So potentially we could get invited over there so I could get flights paid for free to go to Rio de Janeiro.
Finally, that
Yeah.
would be your dream coming
Yeah,
true.
exactly. They want me there. I'm telling
Yes,
you. I would
yes.
suit it. Yeah.
Yes. You will love Brazil, and Brazil will love you all the way back. Get
Without a
assured of
doubt.
that.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Eduardo, thank you very much for joining us. We do mess around, but obviously you are living in the UK, recently moved over here. I always ask a very simple question. Tell us a little bit about your career and how you've got to where you've got to now.
Okay. First and foremost, again, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to receive the invitation. Very excited about it. And how did I get to FM? I mean, one thing I can relate with your other guests that it pretty much found me instead of the other way around.
Right.
But my career itself, then it goes a long way back. Even though I'm 28 years old.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, you don't look very old for a long way back.
It's the Brazilian genes.
It is,
No.
yeah.
So, when I was 15 years old, actually, I started this apprentice program that we have back in Brazil. And I started on that, actually being an IT help desk assistant.
Right, okay.
And then,
At 15?
At 15 years
Really?
old, yes. You do that in parallel to high school years.
That's pretty good, that.
It
That's a
is,
really
it
good
is.
idea.
And it has been such a nice journey. So you do it for a year, and then in parallel, you also study some administrative course
Right.
within the company you are working for. So it was a very nice first experience.
So you're actually learning about the real world while still
Exactly.
in secondary education, which is what we would call it.
Very well. Yeah, it's exactly what you do.
Yeah.
And then right after that, I actually got to go to the US. So my senior year of high school, I was actually in Denver, in Colorado.
Oh, were you really?
Yes, and it has been wonderful. So I
Yeah.
spent 6 months there as an exchange student.
Right. And how did you find that? Was that
It was
quite...
beautiful.
Really?
Honestly, look, nowadays, I look back at that time, I find it so special. However, I was very young.
Yeah.
I was purely Brazilian, have very little knowledge, from the outside world. So
Right, okay.
you leave somewhat the American dreams,
Yeah.
the movies, and
Yeah,
TV
yeah.
shows, and so on and so forth.
Did you go to any frat parties or anything like
Exactly.
that? Yeah.
Yes. I mean, those I cannot disclose.
No, you got to keep that quiet.
Yeah, offline.
Yeah.
It has been wonderful, truly, and
Right.
and it was such a nice opportunity also to increase my English skills and develop them back in
Yeah.
the days. So I went back to Brazil, actually, to the same company that I was an apprentice at, and then
Right.
I was an administrative assistant.
Yeah.
So it was very good, just get a little bit of experience. But
Yeah.
I was actually with a secondary plan, so I was just raising money to flee the country again. really.
Flee the country. Yeah.
So it was always a goal of mine to eventually live abroad and make my career happen abroad. So
Right.
I actually raised some money, and then I went to Lisbon in Portugal.
Yeah, which is a good fit for Brazil as well, to be fair. It's the same language, same culture, similar culture, not same, but similar, isn't it? Yeah.
And at the end of the day, they colonized us, so they have to deal with us.
Exactly, right? Yeah, without doubt, yeah.
So we went there, I went there, and I was staying in Lisbon for 3.5 years. So I did all sorts of things, really. I worked in restaurants, in a mall, and then worked in a Chinese restaurant, and then eventually I became actually a nurse assistant for the majority of the time I was in Lisbon, really.
Oh, really?
So in a nursing house.
Oh, so as in providing care for either older people.
Oh,
yes. Right, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very special, honestly.
Yeah.
I was very young, though, to be dealing so closely.
It's a very tough thing to do.
Yes.
I mean, I have nothing but respect for anybody that performs a role like that, because I don't think I could do it. My wife does something similar.
I see.
And I find it fascinating. So I think anybody that can do it, hats off to you. Because, it's a difficult job, a very difficult job.
Mentally, especially, right? So you really have to have your head in the right place to be showcasing support and also warmth to the people that are at the very last stages of their lifetime, right? So
of course.
I did that for the majority of the time I was in Lisbon, but then it became a little bit overwhelming to me. And I was, again, very young then. I was 19 years old. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do something else. So I started to work in a hotel for the summertime.
Yeah.
And then for personal reasons, I eventually went back to Brazil. I stayed there another year and a half, perhaps. Yeah. Just catching up with family.
Being young. There's nothing wrong with being young.
Exactly.
Yes. Nothing wrong with that at all.
And eventually I was like, you know what? It was great. The time I was here, let me go back to Europe. So I went back to Porto in December 2019.
Yeah.
Little did I know COVID was coming.
Yeah, COVID.
So I was just trying to find a new job, and I eventually started to work for this business center.
Right.
And COVID hits.
Yeah.
But they kept it open. So they needed one representative in each of their locations, and I was one, thankfully staying in one of their main ones.
Right.
And over there, you get in touch with a lot of the businesses, especially new businesses, right?
Yeah.
And in northern Portugal around then, there was a huge boom of shared service centers.
Right. Okay. So very similar to here, actually. We've experienced the similar thing. Yeah.
So back then, one of my main contacts within this company, I ended up being their office manager for. It was actually the human resources business partner,
right?
And then she was like, you know what? We've dealt a lot with each other to ship equipment to the newcomers, and then sign contracts and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And it was just the two of us, really.
Yeah.
At least twice a week over there. And she was like, you know what? I really like you. Would you like to, we're moving out eventually and to this new office. Would you like to come with us and kind of like run our place? And I thought to myself, well, yeah, maybe.
So a terrific example of where your network helps.
Exactly.
You.
Yes. So she just saw the potential in me, really, and she was willing to give me an opportunity. Right. And that was pretty much my entryway to the facility management realm. And I did that for nearly 2 years, I think.
Right. Okay.
And again, they had already a newly put together facility. It looked very well. However, the building was very poor. So we started to have all these issues with health and safety at work requirements. And also, it wasn't the brightest of the buildings.
So it's quite challenging then. So
yes.
you actually joined the sector with quite a challenging environment where I'm guessing you had to think on your feet and learn pretty quickly.
Very, very, very quickly. So it was a 2,262 square meter place, and it was just one floor, one huge open plan with meeting rooms and etc. But then we had a very high ceiling, so the HVAC, as you can imagine, was not the greatest, and the insulation as well. So all of the,
and I guess you need a pretty good one in Portugal as well, because it gets a bit warm, doesn't it?
It does. In northern Portugal, though, I mean, especially back a couple of years, it was very, very cold and very rainy.
Is it as cold as here?
No.
Yeah, there you go. But don't talk to us about cold. we know cold.
Cold enough for the Portuguese standards, and then eventually,
We
but I was very, very grateful for this opportunity because it provided me all the challenges that eventually became lessons. And then it really fostered me to acquire the knowledge, uplift my profile.
Yeah.
And through that experience, really, and the way I was also portraying it on LinkedIn, I was reaching out all the peoples, all the businesses, and eventually what happens is that they saw my profile, they liked me, invited me for an interview because they were putting another shared service center in Porto, which was Kantar, which is the company I work for nowadays.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Eventually, they were like, "Yeah, we really like you. Let's probably get you an opportunity." And I've been at Kantar now for 2 years and a half, 2 countries.
You've been there ever since.
Overseeing EMEA, yes.
Yeah, good stuff. So there's a couple of things there that I'd like to talk about. So prior to getting into the facilities management industry, you had a variety of careers. You seem to have done quite a few things. Did that experience of operating in different areas help you or prepare you for the type of role that you would experience within the FM industry?
100%. I think when I look back at it, it became at some point very intentional to be doing all these different things, right?
Yeah.
Because each of them have taught me a certain skill that I eventually used very well, or it was very necessary as I was, running a building or even a large team in our whole region. And especially to understand people as much as I am able to nowadays. Throughout all these experiences prior to FM, it was developing through it, right? So
of course,
working at the hotel and being able to read the room from my managers to guests, and of course at the hospital and at the nursing house, being able to also read the people through their life stories and at that specific moment.
You pick up empathy in that kind of environment, don't you? The ability to understand what somebody is going through, which I think makes you better in terms of how you can deal with people on a daily basis. And then if you look at the hotel, you've learned probably very specific client experience skills that you perhaps didn't have previously. So it's quite interesting how those things really prepared you for a career in facilities management, which is quite interesting.
It's very funny also because when you're going through it, you don't think that, right?
No, you don't know.
It's like you're in this survivor mode and you're kind of just going with the flow. But eventually it's like everything in life, right? It just builds you up to be the person you were meant to be ever since. But back then I just didn't know that. And nowadays I'm more conscious of it and also trying to wield that flow to life a little bit better on my favor, of course.
Okay. So do you think that facilities management will be your chosen career now as you move forward? Because obviously you've tried a couple of things. Is this, you're stuck now, you're there, you like it?
I love what I do. I really do. I think with this recent experience, it has been a little bit better because I'm being able to then apply my creative side much more to the buildings, and now reaching out to a whole region, then it changes the game a little bit. But when I look back at it, for example, my experience in Porto, I really loved it to do everything that I used to do, but I would struggle as well a little bit. Of course, dealing with in a shared service center environment, you were talking at least 300 to 400 people workforce, right? So you have
of course,
a lot of opinions, a lot of requests, and a lot of wishes, and a lot of points of improvement and peculiar personalities. So navigating through that within that magnitude, sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming. Right. But eventually, of course, you just learn your way through it and how to dance with it, and the flow continues. But I really like what I do. In ways to what I envision to myself in the future, that's a very interesting question because I also see the industry changing a lot.
Significantly,
Right? So we start to question what it is nowadays is the same that it will be in the very near future, right? In terms of occupancy rates, for example, the necessity even for a workplace, an office-like workplace. So I want to adapt to that too, but it's hard to tell what it's going to be in the future.
I mean, to be fair, I think post-COVID, everybody thought, right, the office is never going to be the same. It's going to be a real variation, i.e., working from home, coming in,
Right.
things like that. I think what we're seeing now is, I mean, I see it on the trains, I see it on the tube, I see how busy London is. I think we're seeing an increase of people returning to the office as opposed to that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday
Right.
scenario. I don't know if you're experiencing the same thing in terms of what you see, but that's what I see. Just taking notice of what's going on around me in central London.
It makes sense. And I see the same. However, life, it's very funny and tricky because it's a pendulum movement, right? So
Yeah.
we went from one extreme initially, then COVID hits, we went and reached out a complete other extreme. And now we're kind of making the movement back to it.
Yeah.
But then the generations are changing a lot, especially generations in power now, right?
Mm.
And that also affects the way they will lead their teams and they will lead their businesses to this new phase of the world, meaning that the necessities that nowadays still apply to the current workforce.
Yeah.
Eventually, all these people will retire, or all these people just be like, "Hey, I don't want to deal
Yeah.
with capitalism anymore."
Yeah,
And
see you later.
exactly.
I'm going to Russia. See you later.
And then again, this would change eventually, right?
Yeah.
So at the moment, I pretty much see the same as you do.
Yeah.
But I do question if that it's going to continue, let's say, for the next 5-10 years.
Yeah.
Maybe yes, maybe not.
Okay. So one of the things I'd like to ask you actually is obviously because you operate across different countries and different regions and things like that. Let's move on to ESG, environmental, social and governance. What are the differences you see between the UK and other countries that you've operated in, or if any difference at all? And feel free to be honest.
So what I notice in terms of differences is that in the UK, it's still a very commercial game. It's a very marketing-led approach as well, because every major company, it's being heavily demanded, right, to show up to this now. So the requirements and everything is changing so fast in regards to that. Just next year, we need to be compliant overnight to just a huge list of requirements.
Yes.
So in the UK, I still do not see as a value based on the companies and much more the necessity of it. Whereas, for example, when I'm visiting the Nordics, when I'm visiting, and not yet, but I wish to visit, for example, New Zealand, but I pretty much understand that in those countries, it's very embedded in the culture.
So you actually think that they're further ahead than us in the UK with regards to the whole ESG perspective,
or at least trying.
Really?
Right? So it comes from a core value again. Whereas over here, it's a company strategy. Yeah, I
don't disagree with that. Actually, I don't think that's a very interesting insight. Actually,
so I think that's the main difference. However, you know what? At the end of the day, what really matters is that everyone is trying their best, regardless of the reason, to do better, right? Yeah. And I think when it comes to sustainability, that needs to be the main driver. Yeah. So I don't care if you're doing for the greenwashing of it. Do it, because at the end of the day, it is quite important and it will affect us all eventually. So. Yeah,
in the long term, without a doubt. Okay. So obviously, have you had, moving away from ESG, we'll come back to ESG because I think I'd like to get your thoughts on it in a different scenario. But just if we look back at the earlier start of your career, were mentors or people that brought you into the industry, were they intrinsic in your success? Were they people that helped you along the way, that guided you, that gave you advice? Is there anybody that you now, if you've got a question, you think, I'm going to ring so-and-so because they know the answer? Did you experience that in your career?
Oh, yes. Actually, I couldn't have made it this far without them also. I'm extremely grateful for the people that I've encountered in my journey. And also the people that really challenged me in terms of, or even made me challenge myself on how I was approaching the businesses and my career as a whole. To name a few, I do have a mentor. Actually, she was my senior report when I was working in the business center.
Right.
So she was there already for a few years, and
Yeah.
eventually she was just training me, right, and doing all the knowledge transfer and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
She eventually became my assistant.
Oh, really? No way.
Yes.
How was that? Was that contentious, or was
No, because
No?
I really try my hardest to be very unbiased, especially when it comes to recruiting.
Yeah.
So if I'm suggesting for the businesses I work currently, them to take a position, and of course, most of the people I know, they have experience within FM.
Yeah, of
I
course.
just step outside really. So I don't conduct any interviews. Because I know that they will be able to shine on their own, you know, and they don't need no support in terms of referral or any biases. Anyways, funny again, she eventually became my direct report, and then she was my assistant, and nowadays she's the facilities manager for that place.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And
so
it's very special.
Your mentor mentored you.
Exactly.
You then mentored her.
Yes.
And then she took your position when you moved up.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's actually a really cool story.
It's how life should go, honestly.
Yeah.
And I live by the premises, you know, once you are uplifted, you always had people that eventually did uplift you. So if you're growing, if you're evolving, if you're developing, make sure you're bringing people with you on the ladder of success, you know, and development and so on and so forth. So of course we became really close friends, especially after I left. We had more time to focus on our personal bond. And then, of course, the HRBP that originally, right, was the headhunters just saw a potential and started to bet on me and placed a bet on me. And I mean, I couldn't have done it at all without her.
Yeah, of course.
She's a brilliant professional in Portugal. In the HR realm, in the HR market. So I had other people, of course, HRBPs mainly. And eventually within this current company I'm working at, I don't know why, but I've been extremely lucky with my leaders. They're really people. All of them are really people oriented and human driven, human centric leadership. They're amazing, really. So Giles Moore, to name a few, Kit Scott, which is our global head for safety and security. Right. And he has 10 plus years in the industry, experience in FM originally. And he is just brilliant, really. So
these individuals have kind of become the new mentors, in this country that you're able to ask questions of. And,
exactly.
And is that important to you in terms of your development? And would you recommend people, you know, that they go out and try and find those individuals that can aid them in their career?
Oh, 100%. Even though I do also believe that you need to put yourself outside of your comfort zone and be ready to be challenged by really poor leadership as well. Yeah. Okay. So the thing is that once people grow to like you to a certain degree, they will also protect you a lot for certain, straightforward feedback that you eventually need to listen. You don't have to execute it if it doesn't apply to you, or if you don't want to pursue that exact route in your life and career, but you need to listen to it. You need to be aware. And that's exactly where your superpower relies also in your ability to adapt and to take feedback and to grow from it and to not take it personal, which was something that I speak against myself. I didn't do it for a very long time. But then those people that are really close to you and like you, they will keep you from the raw truth, right? So
is that always a good thing, though?
Not always.
Isn't it, sometimes we need to hear the raw truth, don't we?
Yes.
Otherwise you don't develop, do you?
Exactly. So, but again, there's always a way. And I feel that, at least with my experience, the poor leaders that I eventually crossed paths with, they just didn't know how to deliver proper feedback. I can come to you and say, hey, I think you're not executing well, or you're not, being at your best shape with this task or with this behavior. Instead of coming to you and say, hey, you were awful today, weren't you? So there's always a way to do it.
That they would be more confrontational. Exactly. In terms of their approach, rather than, I always believe in the sandwich technique, mate. You know what I mean? Bit of good
Yes.
news, little bit of bad, bit of good news. You know?
And the thing is, you always understand how genuine a person can be eventually.
Exactly.
Especially working within FM, you get in touch with people very often. So eventually you read them really well, right? And you can see through people's intentions, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a mixture. So I'm very happy with the leaders that I had throughout my whole career. I'm much happier now that I've had several great opportunities to deal with grand people, really brilliant leaders.
I mean, I have a saying, Eduardo, and I say it all the time, and he'll laugh when I say it, but I do say it all the time. You catch more flies with honey than you do vinegar. You know, exactly. and it really is a saying, and I say it regularly. Do you know, I really do. Because I truly believe it. You know, I think if you're nice to people, they'll be nice to you. Yeah. And it's far easier to deliver a difficult message if you have a good relationship with someone as opposed to a confrontational one. Exactly. And we operate in a people-based environment. So you treat people with respect, treat them appropriately, deal with them as you would want to be dealt with. Yes. That's my view, you know. Yes. And I think the industry, to be fair, has changed massively. In the 20 years I've been in it, you know, back then, you know, it was dodgy. Yes. You know, these days it's far better.
I believe you. I think it also comes from the perspective that, you know, throughout the years, the industry was faced as this customer service type of role, and that
everyone was hid in the basement. You know, that's where they were. Yeah.
So people would approach it almost like, it's a service, and you need to provide it, and you need to provide to our standards, and you need to provide it to our way or no other way. But it changed a lot, especially after COVID.
Very much so. It became very people focused.
Yes.
Post-COVID. Okay, so what would you say the most challenging thing for you is within the FM environment? What do you find the most challenging, or what's been the most challenging point of your career to date?
I think the most challenging to this time, it was during the change management strategy we did with our community in Porto when creating the new office. Right. So the local leadership decided to use this opportunity to bring them really, really close to the project. Yeah. So they were one of the main deciders of the majority of the things, actually. Yeah. And I was the one driving the strategy internally. We had some partners supporting us, PMOs, and that was very, very helpful. But I was the main bridge between the project and the workforce. Right. When you're doing something of that size, again, it boils down to people having a lot of wishes and opinions and not much understanding what it takes to get that, and then to provide all of that to them.
Yeah, I want a sauna.
Exactly. I don't care. I want a pool, a rooftop, facing the beach. And
do you know how much that'll cost to get all the piping in? Or, no, I get what you're saying.
You know, really simple things. So during that time, and it was my first time also building an office. Yeah. I took a lot of things personal, really. So I would just take their feedback and I'd be like, oh, no, they're just trying to flag that I'm a terrible professional.
Oh, really?
I'm not doing things right. And and there was a lot of self-doubt.
Did you have a little bit of, because you were quite young, did you have like what we would call in the UK imposter syndrome? 100%. A little bit of it? And did that perhaps drive that taking things personally when perhaps it wasn't that way?
Exactly that. Yeah. So it wasn't a little bit, it was a lot.
A lot. So, right. Okay.
I was very lucky that at the same time I was developing exactly that topic with my therapist. So there was a lot of background work within myself that helped us to make the best outcome out of it. Right. But in the end, it turned out to be a beautiful project. So it was just very challenging. I think I was managing, again, a lot of hats at the same time. And at the end of the day, we were putting this place together and we were still at our temporary office, and that dynamics, and, you know, the show needs, it goes on. So you still need to do all the day-to-day basis and all the day-to-day tasks, and that cannot stop.
If anything, you went from having a full-time job to having two full-time jobs.
Two full-time jobs, exactly.
Because you were managing that location, but also managing the transition of the new one.
Yes. Okay. So, but it was a massive opportunity. And I mean, the place itself, it stands on its own. At the end of the day, we built it in 9 months. Right. We opened the office on June first 2023, and then in October we were already snatching our first award as the best workplace in Portuguese real estate 2023 last year.
Well, that's not bad, is it?
Right?
Yeah, that's not bad at all. So you're an award winner as well. Well, you must have done. So not as much of an imposter as you perhaps thought you were.
Yes, exactly.
So was that validation for you then? When you received that award, was that like oh yeah, God, we did do a good job?
100%. But I think my biggest validation with that project was to see the community so happy with it, really. And it goes back to the work we did all together. And even though challenging, it was massively rewarding. To the point every other company was coming to visit our premises and saying, oh, but we have occupancy issues, and then we're struggling with bringing people back, and the people were just fighting for the zones in the office, saying, no, I want it to be closer to the window, I want to be closer to...
Well, look, Eduardo, you know what, I think some of our listeners that listen to the show would be very interested to find out some of the initiatives that you put in place there. So tell us some of the cool stuff that you did that allowed you to win that award. What did you do? What did you do that was different?
Well, that is a good question, really.
See, I come up with everyone, maybe one every 6 podcasts. There's a good question that comes out. You know?
Okay, what was it that I did? Honestly, of course, the time frame was very short and the project was very ambitious. Now we're talking about a 4,042 square meters place, and it's massive, a parking lot, 2 floors.
How many people would occupy that space?
385 people.
So that's a lot of people.
A lot of people.
Yeah.
So what was it that I did different, though? I really do not know. You know why? Because here's the thing. And I was talking to a friend about that very recently. Everything that I did and all the opportunities that I eventually jumped in, in my head, they were just that they were opportunities.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I needed to do is to deliver my best.
Right.
And eventually that became a little bit more of what people would expect initially, but that was never my plan. It was just like, no, I know how to do it. And if I do not know it, I need to find out how to do it and master that and deliver my best.
Yeah.
So I think it was just that mindset, really. And at the end of the day, understanding that the place wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And the place was not for the architects.
Because,
architects, beautiful people to work with. Really, I had the best time to work with. The company was called TP Bennett.
Right.
And the lead architect was Anne Kuzik, and she, brilliant lady, really. And we had a very good synergy from the beginning. Yeah. But again, they were very open to have me challenging them, saying, hey, your first drafted idea, great, brilliant, but it won't work with these people. Right. It will not work with the community that I have here. Yeah. So it becomes a little bit pointless for us to move forward with it just for the sake of it. So I think I love
the way you describe it as a community. I like the community that we have here. To me, it gives me a bit of an indication of how you felt about the project and the people that were going to be enjoying the project once it was completed. So it sounds like you really cared about it.
We really did. And I was very fortunate as well to have the support of the local leadership team as well, because they were fostering their teams to do the same. Yeah. So I would jump in a change management session we were at the time 150 to 100 employees by the time we were, building the office itself and the project in parallel to that, right?
Yeah.
So recruiting all the communities, the tech teams, and so on and so forth. But then I would have in my session 111 people. 120 people because they were interested.
And lots of questions.
A lot of questions. Yes. We would do a fact session apart from the main session because they would raise.
Should have just done an online survey, Eduardo. It would have been.
I wish. It wasn't enough for them.
No, of course.
But that was good. It was just a matter of how you're gonna manage that, right? How you're gonna apply that. Give honest feedback as well. Do not promise the moon if you're not able to offer it, and be transparent about it. And they appreciated that a lot.
Yeah.
We still had tons of opinions afterwards, but even throughout the project, they were the ones driving massive changes within the company as well.
Yeah.
So our community there, they were the ones claiming for gender neutral restrooms and all these features focused on inclusivity and diversity. So it was very important for the beginning very positive to have them so involved and so embedded in the project with me.
Okay, that's really good.
Yeah.
So, excuse me. So I would actually say that you are the next generation facilities management professionals. You're in the industry right now, but you're the one that's going to be driving the changes the next 20, 30 years.
I hope.
Yeah. Where do you see those changes? And where do you see the industry in 20 years' time, Eduardo?
So the main changes right now are very much driven by AI, right? So I think it's just being mindful of that and trying to keep up with this energy as well. Because then we're talking about automated facilities, right? Or even AI twins, for example.
Yeah.
And then replacing some of the features based on that. Also driving data analysis on it. So you need to be prepared to it. And I think a lot of the people nowadays understand there are a lot of certifications available for FM and so on and so forth, but the material and the content available within these certifications are not necessarily up to date to what the industry is demanding from a professional within
AI's on at the minute. I think AI, it's only as good as what you put into it right now.
Right.
It's not quite AI. It's not calling itself Dave and making it, you know what I mean? It's not free thinking. It's not its own consciousness at the minute. It can just take the information that you put into it and then spit out an answer.
Yes.
But in terms of trends and data, I completely agree. You know, I think that has to be the way that it goes. And it's all about, I think it'll be a bolt on to what people do. And it'll make what people do better. You might have a different opinion, but that's my view. That's where I see it.
Well, that's a very interesting perspective, and I see that too. But then again, within the years where my generation is going to get to the power to drive the changes, hopefully this is a bit more advanced, right? And then again, if we are still the ones fitting it to then work with us or to our advantage, then it means you need to know what to do, right?
Yeah.
So you need to fit it with the right content. You need to drive it the right way. And for that, you need knowledge on it too.
Agreed.
Which I think this newer generation of facilities professionals, they're much closer and much more keen to acquire this knowledge, right?
I completely agree.
Because again, when we get to the position of power into global roles and so on and so forth, we'll need to know how to deal with it in a way that it's advantageous for us. Right?
Yeah, of course, yeah. And it's about putting the right kind of checks and balances into the system as well, isn't it? To make sure that it doesn't go haywire and that it doesn't, just turn all the taps off in a building. Or, do you know what I mean?
There's corrupt the CCTV.
Yeah. Anything along those lines, because that can happen. Yeah. Let's say it does achieve consciousness.
Yes,
it could decide, like Dave, he's not getting out this time. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like those kind of things, and you have to have foresight for those kind of things. So you've got to think about every possible scenario and then build it into the system to make sure that you cover that off.
Yeah, and the human aspect needs to be there, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise then everything could be replaced by it, and we don't want that either.
Exactly. A little bit of chaos. That's the human element. We bring chaos, don't we?
Especially us within facilities management.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, that's our contribution, chaos.
Or trying to contain it sometimes.
Yeah.
But yes, I do believe that this is the path for change now. And I really wish to see more and more people acquiring this knowledge. And currently the knowledge is completely available within the tech communities, right? Yeah. So when we're talking about certifications, for example, nowadays we need to do a little bit of both. So you need to understand the facility management realm and how to manage that properly.
Yeah.
But then if you do want to expand your horizons and your knowledge,
excuse me, sorry, a bit of a frog.
Bless you. Then you also need to get this knowledge from nowadays, the technological culture and so on and so forth, and certifications and etc. So I would like to see in the future this a little bit more together and within a same course, for example, or that the topics or the content within the certifications we have available nowadays isn't just saying what we are just talking about it here, how the AI can impact, but more so teaching us how to deal with these impacts,
how to interact with it, how to get the best out of it and things like that. So instead of just talking about things like health and safety, facilities managers, although they already know lots and lots of things, they need to learn another thing.
Exactly.
They need to learn about the machine.
Right. You know? We have always been, and I don't think this feature
about 5,000 facilities managers just retired. I'm telling you.
That is true. But the thing is that we have always been, will always be jack of all trades, right?
Of course, yeah.
Nowadays, just being smart about it, what it is that we need to actually learn to drive the change and continue to establish our positions as well within the boards and the positions where the decisions are being made. Because the other thing that has changed drastically is that in the past, we would just be this support function, but again, a customer service type of function, right?
Yeah, of course.
Whereas now, they also do need us there sitting in the table and making decisions because they know that this will impact directly the well-being, for example, of the employees or even the whole dynamic of a community they're trying to create as a company as well.
Yeah. Okay, so Eduardo, I'd be quite interested in your take on this. If you were looking to employ somebody, okay, that let's say they've just left school, an apprenticeship, college course, anything along those lines, what type of attributes would you be looking for in a young person if you were to bring them into your team to work alongside you at Kantar as a facilities coordinator? Or what qualities do you look for in a young person? Being a young person yourself, obviously.
Exactly. Yeah. I think being curious and creative are traits that I admire a lot.
Right.
Especially because, at least when I started my career back in the days, I noticed that there was...
Back in the day? What are you saying? Come on, mate. It was only about 7 years ago. You know?
Not even a decade.
Yeah, I know.
Just because majority of the experiences, they have been so impactful, then it feels like forever, you know what I mean? Like I could retire in the next 5 years.
I mean, this is what's very interesting about you. You have fit so much into quite a short period.
Right.
You know, that's why I find it quite interesting to ask you these questions. I'll be keeping an eye on your career to see where you go, because that's a lot in a very short period.
In the next episode, we're going to be talking probably about Silicon Valley, and then I have to fly all the way from California here.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well, you could take me to. You can shout me out to
exactly.
Record a show out there.
You wouldn't mind it at all, right?
No, mate, no.
But again, back to the question, I think, being creative, curious. Yeah. And one of the things that I really admire nowadays, it's self-awareness as well. Yes. Because at the end of the day, dealing with a lot of people and, you know, just navigating through all these communities really, from CFOs and CEOs to the cleaning staff that supports us and to the maintenance people, you really need to be aware of yourself, where your strength relies, where your weaknesses rely, so you can tackle what it needs to be tackled and enhance what it needs to be enhanced. And I'm all here for people, you know, making the most out of their own profiles and careers. I think I focused a lot on that myself, and it has brought me here. And again, for the majority of the professionals, it's their first step to the professional market as well, you know. So be aware. Be aware of yourself.
I actually think that's a skill that a lot of people don't have. And it's actually quite a difficult skill to obtain.
It is true.
You have to then be self-critical.
Right.
And you have to turn around to yourself and say, you are not good at that.
Accountability, right?
And that's difficult. That's a difficult thing to say to yourself.
It starts with drive.
Yeah.
Okay. So you may not, especially just fresh off the school, you had tons of other priorities. You really know very little of the world and adulthood itself, which is another thing, or taxes, or, you know, all the things that eventually you need to catch up with.
But the stuff they don't want to teach us, basically, let's be honest.
Which is crazy to think. But anyways, you need to have this drive. And then if I see that drive, I can work with that.
Yeah.
However, if it's just a person navigating through life, very unaware of themselves, I definitely wouldn't see the candidate as attractive as I would see someone with the very least being able to tell me, hey, yes, I am able to tell you my weaknesses. And it's just not being detail-oriented or perfectionist. No, I really do fail because we all make mistakes, myself included, right? And through them, you were able to learn. But then if you don't have that mindset, and as early as you can, then it's very hard to develop in a healthy way.
Yeah, I completely agree. Okay, we've got 2 questions left.
Right.
All right. First question. What are you most proud of in your career in facilities management so far?
Honestly, moving here.
Oh, really?
It was a completely random thing, lifelong dream, honestly. I come from a very humble family back in the days in Brazil. I was 6 years old when I told mom that I would live in London.
Really?
Because I saw a red bus in the telly. And I was very fortunate to have a very supportive family. She looked at me back in the days and she stared at the telly, stared at me, and she was like, yeah, you're going to do that.
Yeah.
She was preparing me to school. And for you to have an idea, we couldn't afford even she was putting my shoes on. We couldn't even afford to have socks. So I remember the feeling to connect all that. And nowadays look back at my journey and understand that I came a long way to make it this far. And it was such a huge, nice opportunity offered by the CPO of Kantar. And because, again, he saw the potential in me, he saw what I did in Porto, and he believed that I could do and replicate what they believed in other places as well. So here I am. So I think this is the thing I'm most proud of my career. Everything that I did, every trade that I did put myself in, it brought me here. All the mistakes I made, all the poor choices I made, because I made many of them. And but still, through a very alternative path to what I've envisioned, I made it here.
And did you come here on your own? You came.
I did.
See, that's quite courageous, anyway, isn't it? You know, to come to a country you don't know on your own. Right. Set up, and that's not an easy thing to do.
No, not at all. But it's like Rihanna said, fake it until you make it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just say yes.
Yes.
Just say yes.
And the world will say yes.
Exactly. Yes. Okay. Listen, last question. Not work related. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you like doing outside of work? What gives you the most joy? What do you like getting up to?
Cooking. Love cooking.
Cooking?
Yes.
What do you cook?
It's a family heirloom. We all love to cook. Mom is a great cooker. Pretty much everything, really. Especially living in Portugal. Beautiful cuisine.
Can you do a roast?
Yes.
No way. What meat? What meat? What meat?
Actually, in Brazil, we do roast very differently.
Go on.
So
have you done an English roast? That's what I'm asking.
No, not English roast. Not as of now.
Roast potatoes.
Give me a few more months.
Oh, mate, I'm telling you, you will love it. You will love it. It's a good piece of it. It's the only thing that's good in this country. A roast dinner in winter on a really cold day is amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
So yeah, lots of seafood, some Italian food as well. Love cooking, and also wine culture for me. It's very interesting, even though I'm not a heavy drinker myself. However, the history behind it's very interesting for me. And then the basic stuff, right? Traveling, movie theaters, dancing. Love dancing as well. So all the fun stuff. The samba.
That's Brazil.
It is.
It is?
Yes.
See, I know some things I do. Look at that.
You're practically Brazilian.
I know.
I'm
really there. Get me speedos packed. I'm off.
Exactly.
Okay, Eduardo, that brings us to the end of the show. Did you enjoy it?
I loved it. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a great experience.
No problem at all. Thank you very much for joining us. Regularly, people who listen to the show reach out to people on LinkedIn. I'm sure that if somebody reaches out to you because they listen to the podcast, you're okay with that?
Yes, 100%.
They will ask you for any advice?
Yes.
Good stuff. All right. Well, listen, Eduardo, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Yes, a pleasure all mine.
All right, guys. Another fantastic episode of, an international episode of Wear Many Hats, to be quite frank. Looks like I'm going to Brazil and then California, and I'm not paying for any of it. So this has been a great show. As ever, take care. If you can't be good, be bad. See you later, guys.